All right, well, we're on holding by Book of Leviticus chapter 16. Again, welcome everyone. Holding by Book of Leviticus chapter 16. We're in verse 34. We're going to finish up, hopefully finish up this chapter. We spoke last week about the idea of everyone having their own purpose. Right, the Kohen can't do what a Levi does. The Levi can't do what a Kohen does. Right, Israel can't do what either. Right, a Kohen or a Levi, right, can do. So therefore, we spoke quite a bit about that. So the Torah tells me again, Book of Leviticus chapter 16, verse 34. Right, the Torah says. So it says like this. It So what does the Torah tell me? What does the Torah here tell me? The Torah says that this shall be to you an eternal decree. Right? Eternal decree. Forever. Doesn't change. To bring atonement upon the children of Israel, i.e. Yom Kippur. Yeah, what we've been talking about this whole chapter. For their sins once a year. So Yom Kippur comes when? What does the Torah tell me? Once a year. And Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. Yeah, so what do I have? We have a recapitulation. That the fact that, first of all, it's eternal decree, which we're going to speak about. But, because the question is going to be, if it's eternal, what happens when I don't have a Beis Hamikdash? What happens when I don't have a temple to bring sacrifice? So you can say, well, maybe it's only eternal according to that. Simple answer, we'll see. Commentaries will tell us that it doesn't matter if there are sacrifices or not. If there are sacrifices, good. This is the order. This is what you do, according to this chapter. If there are no sacrifices, you're still going to have Yom Kippur. There's still atonement. There still will be atonement. Yeah, that we'll see. So again, it's eternal decree. Bring atonement upon the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. Right? It happens once a year. And Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. Now again, once a year, you're going to have this holiday of Yom Kippur. Doesn't mean you can't repent before that. But it's in and of itself a day of atonement. That we're going to speak about as well. That we'll see. And not only that, it says at the end of the verse, and Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. Now, what I've thought? Did it on his own? What would I have thought? He's doing the will of God, no question. Yeah, what's coming to add? That he did what God said. Yeah, so that we'll have to see. That we'll have to see. Comes along Rashi. Yeah, and Rashi here says, and Aaron did as Hashem commanded. Okay. Yeah, what does this mean? When Yom Kippur arrived, he performed the service, Rashi says, according to this order. Right? He did this order. Now, when was he given the command? Right? The commentaries here say, on Rashi, when was he given the command? The day after the death of Nadav and Avihu. Because it says, Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. Now, it doesn't mean Aaron carried out the commandments immediately after he was given. That's what I might have thought. That once he was given this command, that's when he did it. He did it straight away. So it means he carried them out in their proper time. When's their proper time? This whole chapter on Yom Kippur. Right? That's the first thing. He did it when Yom Kippur arrived. In that order. In the order this chapter tells us what to do. What the high priest is supposed to do. And the Torah mentions this to tell the praise of Aaron. What's the praise? What's the praise of Aaron over here? They did not wear garments, i.e. the vestments, for his own greatness, but rather as one who fulfills the decree of the king. That's what he did. In other words, the vestments weren't for him to show how great he is, right? And to wear them for all, everyone to see him in his glory. No. He did it because he had an obligation, because that's what the king says, right? And that's what you got to wear, right? That's what the high priest has to wear, Yom Kippur. Coming on the Medrash. Medrash says here, there are many commandments addressed to Aaron or the children of Israel, which the Torah presumes we understood were carried out. In other words, God said to Moshe, Aaron, say this, do that, whatever it was. We assume it was carried out without saying so explicitly. Now, the Torah comes along and tells me that what Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. Yes, now, if the Torah comes and tells me Aaron did this command, right, did the commandments of Yom Kippur, what's it to teach us? He carried them out with the sublimest of intentions. I.e., why did he do it? What simple answer, why did he do it? Because God told him to do it. He's doing it for the sake of the king. So there's the question way back in the book of Exodus, that it said when it goes through all the vestments that the high priest has to wear, right, the Kohanim wear, who are the vestments for? It says, L'Shemu Tiferes, honor, L'Kavod Tiferes, right, for honor and glory, for who? Is it honor and glory for the sake of the priests? In other words, it makes them more honorable when they dress up the way they need to give sacrifices? Or is it honor because they dress in a way God told them to dress this way when they do, when they do certain sacrifices, whatever it may be? Maybe it's not for them. Maybe the vestments themselves are for whose glory? God. Maybe it's for God's glory and nothing to do with it. This is a divine command, so they'll do whatever God says. They'll wear whatever vestments they have to wear. Yeah. So you could say, you can look at it one or two ways. Either you tell me it's for God's glory, and the whole purpose of wearing them is to show there is a God who runs the world. He's the one in charge. And he's telling them to dress a certain way because it's for his own glory, not that God needs it. But that's what it's for. Or you tell me no. Or you tell me it's to boost up the morale of the high priest. Or to boost up the morale, let's say, of the regular priest, of a regular Kohen. Maybe it's only for them. And then people are going to look at them in a different way. Maybe that's also going to draw glory to God. Could be. Right? Could very well be. Yeah, it could be for both. Right? I'll give a third option. The fact that Aaron the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, or other Kohanim are wearing the vestments, it could be for both. It could be for the sake of God that they're wearing it, i.e., for the sake of God's commands, and it's for God's glory, and it's for their own glory. Not that they're doing it to say, oh, look at me, look how I'm dressed up, look how better I am. No. But the way people look at them, they put them on a higher pedestal, which they should, because they're wearing the proper vestments. When they're proper vestments. So here comes on Rashi. Rashi says, normally we don't mention such a case. God said to Moses and Aaron to do it. First of all, you don't assume they didn't do it. Yeah, we assume it was carried out. Very good. What's the problem? Why does the Torah explicitly say he did it? Right? Like, the assumption would be they didn't do it. What do you mean they didn't do it? Torah has to tell me explicitly they did it? The assumption would be that they didn't. Why would that be? Right? So our assumption is, if God gave a command to Moses and Aaron, the assumption is they did it. That's the assumption. But why does the Torah over here say, right? Why does it say, and Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses? Because if the Torah of the Medrash says, and brought down in some of the commentaries on Rashi here, if the whole point of telling us that Aaron carried out what he was supposed to do, then why did he do it? He did it with the sublimest of intention. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sublimest or sublimest. I think it's sublimest. Whatever. Whatever it is. What does that mean? It means he did it. He did it for no other purpose than he fulfilled the decree of the king. Right? That's what Rashi said. He didn't do it for his own greatness. He didn't wear the vestments to make himself look good or think he's God's gift to the world. Why did he wear the vestments? He wore the vestments because it's a divine decree. Right? It's an absolute divine decree. Okay. Now, what do I see over here? Wouldn't I assume? Now, we can get in trouble for making assumptions. But wouldn't we assume over here that when God gave a command, and he said, this is what I commanded Moses, Aaron, both of them, whatever, tell the Jewish people, do this, that, and the other thing. Isn't our obligation to fulfill any command because God said it? Now, why would I say that? Because 80% of the Torah doesn't make sense. You'll tell me, I understand, don't kill, don't kidnap, don't steal, many things that make sense, that Noahides have to keep. Make sense logically according to the Torah, but they have to keep it, the Noahide laws. Why? Because God commanded Moses, he passed down the Torah to us. And within that Torah is commands for non-Jews also. And they have to keep what's universal. So I can understand 20% of the Torah. That makes sense. So they say, I don't need a divine command. What do you think I need a divine command? Tell me don't kill, don't steal. There's no novelties in that. All mankind has to keep that. Okay. But what about the 80% doesn't make sense? Right? We've mentioned many times. Shotness. Wearing wool and linen together. Why, why does the Torah say that? Don't know. It's a divine command. What about not eating milk and meat? Torah says 3 times, can't cook a calf in its mother's milk. 1 to tell you you're not allowed to cook it even if no one eats it. 1 to tell you can't eat it. 1 to tell you can't get benefit from it. Okay, but why all these laws? All these laws can't mix milk and meat. You have to have separate tablecloths. You have to have separate dishes, separate placemats. So they don't mix milk and meat. So they'll never mix milk and meat. You always remember. That make logical sense? Doesn't make logical sense. Why? Because if I have kosher meat and I have kosher milk, and I can eat the meat and I can eat the milk, why can't I mix them? Torah says you can't. Torah says forbidden. Why? Good question. So there are a lot of things in the Torah don't make sense. Comes on Moshe Feinstein, a blessed memory, Torah giant of the last generation in America. Would Torah giant if he would have lived anywhere. Right, he was the Gadol Hador for sure, last generation. Greatest rabbi of the last generation. So Moshe finds in Drash Moshe's commentary on Chumash, Parshas Korach, says, how could Korach make such a big mistake? How can he make such a big mistake coming against Moshe and Aaron? Really comes against Aaron, comes against the priesthood. Says, listen, I see who's coming out of me. I see Shmuel Navi. Sammy, the prophet's coming out of me. I also have Yichus. I also have genealogy. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu pick Aaron over me? I'm just as good. Then he started making fun of him. He took 250 great people and they all got destroyed. They all got swallowed up. What's going on? Korach was he came out of Egypt, one of the 20%. He held the ark. Not everyone held the ark. Who was worthy died. He wasn't a fool. So what happened? Comes on, Moshe Feinstein explains in Drash Moshe. He says Korach did not internalize the message. He saw all the miracles. It didn't make an impression, even though he got saved and he came out of Egypt. He did not internalize the message. So if he didn't internalize the message, he should have realized it's all a divine decree. If it's all a divine decree, and that's the way we look at it, are we ever going to sin? Are we ever going to question? You're going to have to understand. I have to make the Torah understandable, okay? We're going to delve into it, take our whole lives to delve into it, okay? But at the end of the day, you still got to keep it. Still going to show up, if you're a Jew on Sukkot and start, you shake your up like this, and you're shaking it back. You understand it more, you understand it less, doesn't matter. God says you get in there and you shake the lulav. That's going to draw you closer. Yeah, but I don't want to eat 35 pounds of matzah or, 50 kilos of matzah in 35 seconds and have to whistle Dixie, right? Throw it, cough, and say, God will say, shut up and eat the matzah. That's what you got to do. Oh, you got 3 hours of sleep last night, still got to get up and pray. Oh, you men out there going to pray with a minion with 10 men. I'm tired. Well, too bad. You got to go pray. So you take a nap during the day, whatever it is. But that's what you got to do. Comes along Moshe Feinstein of blessed memory and says, Korach made a mistake. Very hard to understand Korach. Very understand this week's parsha also that we're going to read here in Israel. Parsha Shlach on sin of the spies. Very hard to understand. Even what we read last week. That everyone outside of Israel is going to read this week, Palosfa. Yeah. The end of the parsha talks about what do they miss? The fish. They missed the fish in Egypt. They missed the watermelon. They missed the good things down in Egypt. Then they forget. How they forget? They were getting destroyed there. The work was impossible, getting beaten down every day, physically, spiritually. They wanted to really go back to Egypt. Mind-boggling. Yeah, a lot of these parts is very hard to understand. Simple explanation. They have a video, on that, what's the deal with the, that they missed, the watermelon, the fish. Very hard to understand. But we'll speak about Korach here. So Moshe Feinstein says with all the miracles and everything that happened, they didn't change him. They didn't change him. You tell me he was one of the 20% that came out. Okay. He's one of the 20% that survived. Came out of Egypt. You want to tell me with all the miracles and God made Moshe king? He made Moses king. Everyone understood he was the one in charge. Right? Taking everything from God. You really think he did it on his own? You really think he's playing favorites? See, if he came out against Moses himself, they would have killed him. You don't come out against the king. And Korach's not that much of a fool. That he wouldn't do. But who did he come out against? Aaron. Why did he come out against Aaron? He said he played favoritism. Or we say in Israel, protexia. Got connections. After 12 years of schooling, what was my senior statement in high school? It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's all about connections. And money's only a medium of exchange. That was my senior statement. Yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right? It's all about connections. And money's only a medium of exchange. Just there to use it for whatever. Korach didn't get the message. How did he not understand? God said it, we do it, that's it. Moshe's not in it for himself. Not only that, there's a tremendous self-accounting with all the things that were built in the Mishkan, right? All the loops, the bars, the wood, and all this. Moses has taken accounting. Why? Why is he taking accounting of everything? You tell me God told him to. Okay, but what's behind the reasoning? What's behind the reasoning? So Rashi, others say, what the reason is? Because he didn't want people to think he took anything for himself. And God, and he himself stole and made himself rich. Moses himself. Right? Parsha, everyone's going to read this week. God says, he's my trusted servant. He spoke to me face to face, whatever that means. We don't know what this communication was. Yeah, I get this question asked a lot. My answer is the same. Don't know. Right? Talk about what this communication was. That being said, Moshe Rabbeinu not playing favorites. If he's not playing favorites, and Korach says, well, I'm just as good. How did he make such a big mistake? How did he make such a huge mistake? Says Moshe finds in a blessed memory. In Drash Moshe, his commentary on the Torah, Parshas Korach, what does he say? He missed the boat. He didn't internalize the message. He didn't understand everything as God said it, we do it, that's it. Not a leap of faith here. It's faith with belief. That's Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. Right? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm the Lord your God. How do we know? They took us out of Egypt, took us out of the house of bondage. That's the mitzvah belief in God. All right, very interesting question. How can God command you believe? It's either you do or you don't. Yeah. How can he command that? Interesting question. We're not going to go there, but interesting philosophical question. But the point is, says Rashi over here, what did Aaron do? He fulfilled the words of the king. He fulfilled the decree of the king. So any mitzvah we do, we're not going to have any questions. I mean, we may have questions how to do it, what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it and how it applies and all this. Very good. You have to know what to do. But at the end of the day, why do we do it? Some things have explanation that makes sense. Most of it doesn't. So you still have to learn it. You still have to try and understand it. But even if it doesn't make sense, what do we say over here? Just like God commanded Moses. That's the obligation. God said it, we do it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Not a leap of faith, right? Not a leap of faith over here. It's about belief with knowledge. But everything we do, whether we understand it more or understand it less, it doesn't matter. I still have an obligation to keep it. Because if you're going to say, it's all about philosophy, let me learn about it, then I'll keep it. It'd be the same thing. I gave an example before. Imagine someone's going to go on a plane and they say, hey, if I go on a plane, I have to understand how the plane works. But if I have to go understand how the plane works, I have to go through physics, thermodynamics, how's the stuff put together, how's it stay in the air, and all these different things. Yeah, so what's the person going to say? Well, you got 10 minutes to board. You want to try and figure it out? Good luck. I'll give you some books to read. You want to get on the plane? You better get on the plane now. You don't get on the plane now, you're not getting on. But I want to understand. Well, guess what? You won't go anywhere. How are you going to get in the car? How are you going to get on a train? I got to understand how it works. You're going to say, obviously, people do it anyway. It's not a leap of faith. They understand, basic things. So they don't need a philosophical idea how it works, but I've heard this as an excuse. How could I keep, let's say, by shotness? Someone once gave my kids, a bunch of sweaters, and the sweaters said 100% wool. So since they say 100% wool, you got to get a check for shotness. Make sure there's no linen. Why? Don't know. Divine decree, right? Divine decree. I'm not saying there's no reason. I'm saying it's one of those things. One of those things is divine decree. Yeah, no different than eating milk and meat together. So the person says, what's the reason? Secular Jew tells me, well, what's the reason? I said, it's a good question. We're not sure. Right? It's a divine decree. Right? No matter what the Torah says, we have to keep it. It's a divine decree. They said, if you can't give me an answer, why should I keep it? So Kaufman smart aleckly said, if I would give you an answer, you would keep it? I said, of course you wouldn't keep it. If I gave you an answer, you'd say, I don't like that answer. If I gave you an answer, another answer, you'd say, I don't like that answer. Or if you gave me a third answer, you'd say, I don't like that answer either. Right? You could do that, right? You could say, I don't like any of the answers. They don't resonate with me like I really care. Like I really care if it resonates. Let's say there are 5 potential answers. You can say, I don't like any of them. Now, that is reasonably. That is reasonably. So, nope, that's not the reason. Nope, that's not the reason. Well, they're potential reasons. You don't have to like them. They're potential reasons. Yeah. So I found a better reason. Very good. Doesn't mean one answer given off the top of my head is going to be the answer and it's going to resonate. Some people say, okay, that's good. Or some people will still question it. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. But see, the problem is if you're missing background, which a lot of people are, now I'm going to throw out an answer. You don't see what went behind the answer. there are probably 10, 15 steps you're missing. Someone's going to say that doesn't resonate. Well, idiot, why doesn't it resonate? You know why it doesn't resonate? Because you don't know diddly squat. You don't know. So you're missing 10 steps. So when but that's not fair. I want all the information at the drop of my, the back of my hand. Very good. Sit and learn, baby. That's what it is. You got to work hard. You don't get anything for free. Right? You can go to Rabbi Dr. Google, the Googler Rabbit. Go ask him all your questions. Google doesn't have all the answers. You go to ChatGPT. All of them have all the answers. Missing the human element, but we're not going to go there. Yeah, people want all the information instantaneously, but also guess what? Person's Rebbe's not there to give them all the answers. Also have to let people think. Not everything should be handed to them on a plate. Sure, give one answer, partial answer. Sometimes you give every single answer all the way to the end. But you got to think also. We mentioned in the book of Ruth, it's pretty important that Ruth is Jewish, right? We explained that last week in the Q&A. But if it's not important, Ruth, now again, let's just ask the question. I'm not going to rehash it all, make you go watch it, But if you read the entire book, there are 4 chapters. The entire book is about what? Is about Ruth and Orpah marrying Jews. They were Moabites. Got a problem from the very beginning. First of all, how could this illustrious family, these 2 sons, marry non-Jews? So one answer is, look what happened. They went to Moab, no Jews to marry. So they married these non-Jewish princes, right? Daughters of the king of Moab. Yeah, it's an obvious question. How can it be? There must have been some level of conversion. When, where, how? Good question. And if there's already conversion, then why is Naomi trying to push her away, push them both away? What type of conversion was it? Good. And if she wasn't converted, then her husband, she doesn't inherit his fields, because the fields belong to her husband, because her father-in-law died. So really, they belong to him. He's the heir. Yeah. But if he's married to her, he dies. How can she inherit? Non-Jews don't inherit from Jews, certainly not. I mean, you can make up whatever you want in a document to say that they could inherit. Fine. It's going against what the Torah says. Yeah. But what about, a non-Jew can inherit from their non-Jewish parents. That's not a problem. Yeah. So now if she's not Jewish, what's the whole question? What's the whole question? Goes this whole thing about the field. They're not shaykh to her. They're not connected to her. So what's the whole thing about conversion? Oh, very good. So what happened? Had to be some level of conversion. Right? Okay. So without going into all that, what's the problem here? What's the problem? So we discussed. Because someone asked, he needs the mother of David to be Jewish. Doesn't matter. No. Not true. Because if Ruth isn't Jewish, then the Moabite gene goes all the way down. So that means Ruth's son Oved is not Jewish. That means Yishai, father of David, is not Jewish. They're going to say, who cares? Only the mother needs to be Jewish. But you're missing information. It's the Gemara in Kedushin, Daf Samach Vav, right, 66, that tells me what? In certain cases, if I have the father's apostle, someone who's blemished, i.e. comes from where? Forbidden union, this is the Moabite, can never convert, right? It's only by a woman, not by a guy. If it's not by a guy, then Jesse's not Jewish, but that's, even if the mother's Jewish, it doesn't matter. That child is going to be a blemished child. So you need Ruth to be Jewish, but it's not only that. It's not only that. What happens? In order for the Messiah to come, he has to be from the tribe of Yehuda. Got to be from the tribe of Judah. Can't be a non-Jew. You cannot be a non-Jew. Non-Jews don't have tribes. No offense. No offense to any non-Jews out there. Because who i.e., Elijah the prophet's going to come in the end of days. He's going to be the harbinger of the coming of the Messiah, going to announce this is the Messiah, blah, blah, blah. He's going to sort everything out. The non-Jews are bothered. Which tribe am I going to be? I don't know. Which tribe am I going to be from? I don't know. If we make it that far, Elijah the prophet's going to sort it out. Now, even without this answer, that's really the answer. So you got a Moabite, all generations, even if they marry a Jew, that Jew has a blemish, has the status still of a Moabite. Yeah. So good, that's really the answer. But ask the question. Okay, it was a valid question. 100% a valid question. Right? If the mother's Jewish, then I don't need Ruth to be Jewish, but we're going to ask another. We're going to make you think now. Forget the answer I just gave. The entire book, according to everybody, nothing to talk about. And who's the book written by the way? Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet. Everyone agrees he's a prophet. This is prophecy. This is prophecy here, okay? Now, if this is prophecy and Samuel the prophet wrote it and told the story, so obviously it's true because he's a prophet. Now, if the whole story, hinges on the fact that you're going to have a redeemer, the redeemer of that field, who belongs to that field? Ruth has claim to the field if she's Jewish. If she's not Jewish, no claim. She got no claim over here. Now, she's got no claim in the entire book. Now we'll ask the question. It's not a deflection, right? But we'll ask the question. Why do I need? You're going to ask me if David's mother is Jewish. I don't need anyone else to be Jewish. The father doesn't need to be Jewish. Okay, so we answered that. But even without that answer, it's pretty darn crucial Ruth is Jewish. The entire book, 4 chapters, is all about that. 4 chapters is all about conversion. Whether it's valid, it's not valid. How could she get converted? Right? Why? Because the Torah says, the book of Deuteronomy, a Moabite never enters the congregation. Conversion should never help. But even if I didn't give that answer, that they're blemished, that a Moabite blemish is all the way down, like a mamzer is the only other case. A mamzer that's married to another mamzer or to a convert. Yeah, what stats that child? Mamzer. Yeah, the mamzer. That child, and their future children, right? Let's say that child now has kids later. What's the status of those kids? Mamzer, all the way through. It doesn't matter if they're Jewish or not. The mother's Jewish, that doesn't matter. There's a blemish for all generations. The only way to take it out is if that Jew, that mamzer, marries a shivcha, Jewish slave, that child now is not a mamzer. Doesn't help the husband. It helps the child. Right? They have 2 cases where all the way, generation after generation, they're blemished. And there's nothing to do about it. But that's the answer. That's really the answer. Or really one potential answer. Yeah. Now, even if I didn't give that answer, and I would have said, very good, why does Ruth have to be Jewish? So we have this whole thing about oral law, and that's why we read the book of Ruth, because King David's lineage is called into question, because his great-grandmother was a Moabite. So you're going to say, I don't need her to be Jewish, but then what's the whole point of the book? You got 4 chapters talking about this whole thing. So now I'll flip the script. So you're going to say, okay, I don't like your answer. Fine. You don't like my answer. So why does the book talk all about conversion for Ruth and Orpah? There are 100 questions we asked when I gave this class. And when I gave this conversion class, one question was, if Ruth's really Jewish, why is nobody trying to push her away? Right? And if she's not Jewish, how does she have a claim to the land? Right? A lot of questions we went through. That being the case, even if you say, well, I don't like your answer, you don't like my answer, fine. Yeah, that you need Ruth to be Jewish. So then what's the point of her being Jewish? What's the point of her converting? And the conversion's valid. You got to come up with an answer for that. Because if you don't need her for King David, which we saw you do, then there's no point in the whole book. There's 0 point. You tell me maybe you just need it for the fact that that she's going to be Jewish, but her Judaism's called in the question because she's a Moabite. And that wasn't known, right? That's only going on a Moabite man, not on a Moabite woman. But if a Moabite woman converts, very good. Moabite man converts never helps. So now you ask okay, very good. So now that's pretty crucial to know if she's Jewish or not. So now what's the question now? What's the connection between her and King David? Good. That's still a valid question. So we answered the question, but if you don't say she's Jewish, then what's the whole book talking about? See, I don't have to give that answer. That's an obvious question. That's an obvious question anyone could have thought of. I didn't have to come up with a question. But if you're going to, this is logic. If you're going to say she doesn't need to be Jewish, or even better, fine, maybe she needs to be Jewish to be taught this thing that's a Moabite woman and not a Moabite man, okay. But then you're going to say, fine, she needs to be Jewish, clarify herself. Yeah, no connection to King David. Now, obviously, there has to be. There has to be a connection. Why? Because even though you're going to tell me King David's mother is Jewish, so he's Jewish, there's a fundamental question here. The fundamental question is, it comes out that Ruth is really Jewish. In 3 generations comes out the future Messiah. Right? Comes out King David, comes the Davidic line, the future Messiah. So now you have to ask the question, why tell me that? Why tell me who her progeny is? Who cares who her progeny is? It doesn't matter. Maybe you'll say, look, where does Ruth come from? From Moab. Where does Moab come from? An incestuous relationship. So you can tell me it's a relationship between Lot and his daughters, forbidden relationship, but okay. So this is what happened. Very good. So now Ruth comes from that. Now, if Ruth comes from that, and now 3 generations later comes out King David, a little bit strange here. So you could tell me, wow, the future Messiah, right, in the Davidic line, where does it start? It comes from an incestuous relationship. So now you have to understand why you need that spark. Why you need that spark from Lot and his daughters to have Ruth and to have, and to make that connection. Because, okay, now we understand she's Jewish. Good. Now, what's her connection to King David? You'll say it's biological. Very good. Right? But you have to there has to be some level of connection between the fact she had to go under conversion. Yeah. And that's, she married the most righteous of the generation. So she went under this conversion. Everyone agrees she converted. Right, exactly how it looked like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But everyone agrees. So now what's the connection between her and King David? So you tell me biologically. Okay. 3 generations come out of Ruth. You got Obed, Yishai, and then you got David. Okay. Now let's dig a little bit deeper. Ruth's the Moabite. Yeah. She converted, she's Jewish. Very good. Now, is the end of the book only telling me genealogy? The Torah is not a history book. Yeah. Even the book of Genesis, we hear the birth of the Jewish people. But the Torah stops to tell significant stories. Right? Tell a story about Adam and Eve. Tells the story of Noah. 10 generations later, tells the story of Abraham. Then tells the story of Isaac. Tells the story of Jacob and everything else. And then how they get down to Egypt. They become a nation. But it's not a history book. We're being taught things for a reason. We're learning character traits of our founding fathers and foremothers. And a lot of it, very hard to understand. Simple explanation, very hard to understand. A lot of stories in the book of Genesis. Now, someone could say, maybe you need, one of my answers was, maybe you need a squeaky clean generation here, 3 generations. King David doesn't want to have any psul, any blemish. But his grandmother, great-grandmother, is blemished. Why is she blemished? Came from Moab. So one possible answer could be, I'm not saying it's the answer, because it really gave the answer. But one possibility is you want that lineage to be squeaky clean. In other words, she married the greatest person in that generation. She converted, and throughout the next 3 generations, no issues at all. None. Because if you have any issues with blemish on King David, but you say, isn't he already blemished? Isn't the whole thing already blemished because he came from Moab? These are good questions. These are very good questions. Yeah. So I'm just pointing out, you don't have to like my answer. Pretend you don't have to like my I gave the answer, what the answer is. Yeah. What I think the answer is. But there are other potential reasons. But even if you're going to say, forget I came up with this thing about the blemished Moabite all generations, forget that. So you're going to say, no, I don't like that. Doesn't make sense to me. It can't be. We're not going to go according to squeaky clean. And, King David has to look unblemished and all that. Nah, come on, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so why'd she convert? Why is the entire book about conversion? And what's the connection between her and King David? You have to ask the question. You can blow what I said out of the water and say, that doesn't resonate. It's probably not true. Maybe. Maybe it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad answer. Right? May not be the answer. Okay, it's possible. It's possible. But if you reject it outright and say, no, that doesn't resonate, okay. There could be 100,000 other answers, but you're going to have to come up with an answer of why it's so important she has to be Jewish and why the entire book is written about that fact. The entire book, I mean, you got to be a dodo not to read word by word. You got to be an absolute imbecile to not read word by word. That's what it's all about. It's what the entire book's about, right? It's about her conversion. She goes one way, Orpah goes another way. What does Ruth say? Your people are my people, your God is my God. Yeah. Orpah goes a different way. That's what the whole book's about. Written by Samuel the prophet. So why is she Jewish? What's the whole point of her being Jewish? And going through that whole thing, 4 chapters. And then at the end, it comes with a final blow. What does it say at the end? She's connected to King David, to Malchus, kingship. Not just kingship. Kingship of the future Messiah is going to come from that line. So again, like my reasoning, okay? You find a better reason. But you have to explain. You have to explain what the whole purpose of the book is and why you read it on Shavuos. Why do you read it on Shavuos? Because it teaches us the importance of Torah Shebaal Peh, oral law. That's what it teaches. Shavuos is about the giving the Torah Mount Sinai. Moses got 2. He got 2 Torahs. One was the written law, which has no explanation, right? Just a lot of laws. Do this, don't do that. And there was an explanation with it. What was the explanation? The explanation itself was the oral law. So now you come to this thing, Ruth is a Moabite. I got a major problem. Ruth is a Moabite. So what do? You can never come into the community. Conversion doesn't matter. Oh, really? If conversion doesn't matter, why do we have the whole book in the first place? The whole book seems about conversion. Shouldn't be. Rip up the whole book. Sorry, Samuel the prophet, we're going to rip it up. Why am I going to rip it up? Because this story doesn't make sense. There's no possible way she can convert. Very good. Because what does the Torah say? The Torah says a Moabite and an Ammonite can never come into the kahal of the Jews, can come into the community of the Jews. No matter if they convert, they can be the most righteous. They can be the second coming of Moshe Rabbeinu. Doesn't matter. Never going to help. Never going to help. Well, I got a problem now. I got a major problem. If that's the case, Ruth really isn't Jewish. And if Ruth isn't Jewish, I got a problem with King David does the whole thing on his lineage. You got to say, but King David's mother could be Jewish. You're right. She could be. But why this whole thing and go through the lineage? And why the whole book written whether she converted or not? And how the conversion worked. Again, you can take what I say, take it with a grain of salt. So come up with a better reason. Come up with a better reason why you have that whole book. Oh, you don't have a reason? So mine could be a possibility. Could be. Could be 100 possibilities, right? I found the answer. Okay. Yeah. What's the point? What's the point? Is that if you're lacking information, doesn't mean the information's not there. And a lot of people lacking a lot of information. A lot of information. I gave another example. I don't have to use Ruth as an example. I spoke on Thursday, my Q&A, about rabbinic ordination, how it works, what the history of it, what it means today, or what it doesn't mean today, etc. I had people comment and say, wow, this was very informative. I had no idea. How would a person have any idea? They never learned about it. Because it comes up. It comes up in learning. But things that most people are going to learn that they need to know, either to be a Jew or no, it's not going to come up. Not going to come up. So it's given a lot more weight than sometimes it deserves. I mentioned, I think it's good people have ordination. It's not the end to end all things. Because there are people that don't have ordination, but they can still give classes. They can still be rabbinic authorities even without it. I mean, obviously it's better to have it, I think, but doesn't necessarily disqualify if they know what they're doing. And they have real knowledge. And they have shimush talmudei chachamim, right? They learn by big people. They get apprenticeship by big people. They know how to answer, what to do, this, that, these different issues. It's complicated, okay. But reputation is everything. That's why rabbinical courts will never necessarily ask the question unless they have reason to. If I send someone who based it, to a rabbinical court, and they answer all the questions, they make me look really good. If they flub it, they make me really look bad. They're going to question and say, "What? How could you bring such a person?" Yeah, about reputation. But if they see the person knows the answers, and they know most of the, a lot of that information came from the person that taught them, then they know the person knows what they're doing. And that person has legitimacy. They're going to sit there and say, "Which document?" They don't care. They see the end product. Send someone to Miami. First student I had to convert. And the basin said, "You sent us someone who's ready to convert." I said, "That's right. I sent them because they're ready." And I told them, convert them. That's what you should do, convert them. They know necessarily what to do because, they're normally on top of everything. They want to be on top of everything. Okay. Right. So, that's good, but, it's a waste of time in many ways. Once the person's ready to convert, I'll send them. It'll take however long. Right. But obviously, if they're ready, very good. So something like that, they're going to sit there and question me. They're not going to question me. Why are they going to question me? Because the person knows what they're doing. They know where they got the information from. They know who my Rebbe is. They know where I've been. They're going to say, "Where's that piece of paper hanging on your wall?" They're not going to ask that question unless they have reason to think I'm a fraud. Right? Mentioned that in my Q&A also. Yeah. If people are doing things, either they have rabbinic ordination that goes against Torah mitzvahs, yeah, that's a problem. They're going to call it into question. They're going to say, "Who'd you learn by?" Then they're going to call up people they taught and tell them, "Listen, look what this person's doing. Look what they're saying." There have been people who've had their ordination revoked because they were doing, as the English would say, dodgy things, right? Or cheeky things, worse, a lot worse. Yeah, so they should be questioned. I get it. 100%. Well, someone's giving over information and the information is good, and the base stand and everyone else thinks it's good, they're not going to question it. They don't even care. Practically speaking, they don't care. It's good to have. I'm not saying none. It's good to have, but the person didn't have it, but they're qualified because they learned under big people, and so who cares? Right? It's not as what it is. But a lot of people commented on that, whatever, sent me text saying, "I had no idea how it works." Thank you very much. You're not expected to know how it works. Yeah. But people will say all kinds of things, but they don't, where's their frame of reference? Their frame of reference is, I mentioned by the book of Ruth, their frame of reference is their missing information. When you have all the facts, then you can make a comment. And even if you don't have all the facts, you can still comment and say, "What about this? What about that? Does this mean this? Does this mean that?" You can also comment. but realize what happens when you have all the facts. See, if you have all the facts, this question doesn't even come up. This question does, about rabbinic ordination is not even a question. Not even a question. Let's say people can't ask, what is it? What does it mean today? Okay. Why can't we judge certain things? So we're not the same type of rabbinic ordination we had, from the time of the Second Temple that was given from people who had rabbinic ordination in the land of Israel. We don't have that today. It's been broken. Chain's been broken. They wanted to start it up again in the 1300s, 1400s. Didn't happen. Right? Never happened. Okay. Someone has to have the requisite knowledge. Right? And the requisite knowledge means they study the laws. Okay. That's not everything. What's everything is who they learn by, who they ask their questions to. Yeah. And if people see they give the answers that they're expected to give, i.e. the right answers, they're never going to call it into question. Never. And the more people that are sent that give the right answer, the right information, makes you look even better. Problem is, person might send someone they shouldn't have sent or whatever, then makes you look bad. And then once it makes you look bad, they're going to say, why'd you send this person? Then they might call in this, certain questions. But, if everything's on the up and up, they're never going to ask the question. And most people have no idea. They can have someone teach them. Don't have rabbinic ordination at all. What about a woman? Could a woman teach another woman, certain laws she has to know? Sure. If she knows the laws, not a problem. She doesn't have to be called the Rebbitzin either. She doesn't have to be called the rabbi, Rebbitzin, nothing. You can be a teacher. Yeah. Is that a problem? Not a problem. Definitely not a problem. If the person's qualified, no issues. There are no issues. If the person's not qualified, I've seen that. I've definitely seen that. People not qualified, that's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. I tell people, if you're not qualified, don't do it. Don't mislead. Don't misrepresent. Don't lie. One of the things I can't stand. People misrepresent, people are dodgy, and people lie. Yeah, but people do it. Why? Either for money, for whatever reason. Whatever reason. They think they have the ability to do something. Yeah. Yeah. So the most important thing is, do you know the information? And if someone says something that's dodgy, you question it. They're like, you can convert yourself. Oh, really? We can have mass conversions. Really? Who said such a thing? People say, can't deal with him, he's a fraud. Yeah, certain people are. No question. Not even going to debate them. It's not worth my time. But, you got to be careful where information comes from. If someone is giving over bad information or things that they can't answer on a regular basis, that calls into question. I mean, you remember everything, okay? Yeah, but if people are doing things, that are wrong, everyone's going to pick up on it. It's very simple. It's very simple to know if a person knows what they're doing or not. It's not a hard test. It's definitely not a hard test. There are different levels of what people know. They're not expecting you to know every last thing and this and that. Okay. But if someone comes out and says something that's totally against Torah and the base, then you're going to say, where'd you get that information from? Yeah. So if the teacher taught them wrong, that's going to look bad on them, for sure. They're going to say, what are you listening to them? What are you listening to them? So there are a lot of things here. A lot of things that, I see all the time. People ask questions, and again, questions are fine. I don't have any problem, answering questions. A number of times there's significant information that's missing, which a lot of people is frustrating. They can say, how come I didn't know that? Because there are certain things you wouldn't know if you don't know. If you don't know all the nuances, you don't. Because some answers you can answer very quickly, but they say, where'd you get that from? Well, how do you know that? So this is based on years of learning and experience. That's what it's based on. The more you learn, the more you know, and the more you don't know, essentially. But it can be extremely frustrating when people think maybe they have a certain level of knowledge, or, they have good questions, or they think they have a good question, and they think, well, no, that can't be the answer. Oh, that doesn't resonate. Now, here, what does the Torah say? We get back to here. It says, Aaron did as Hashem commanded Moses. It's a mitzvah to listen to the rabbis, right? Every generation. So not always easy. It's not always easy to hear what they say. And there are times, yeah, you could have explained things more. There are times that just better give a short answer because things get complicated. Okay. Not every answer is the only answer. Let's make clear. I mean, there are certain things that, what's the blessing over water? Shackle. That's the answer. Yeah. Only question is, what if I drank water to take a pill? Yeah. And the only reason I'm drinking the water is to take the pill. Do I make a shackle? No. Why not? Because I'm not doing it to quench my thirst. If I'm doing it to quench my thirst, okay. Yeah, what about taking vitamins? Do I make a blessing on that? Okay, these are questions. Cough syrup, very good. Cough syrup that has flavor. Proper rabbinic supervision on it. It's got a flavor. Yeah, it tastes good. Do I make a blessing on it? I'm getting benefit. Tastes good. Yeah, so that there's a whole question. It's not, it's not cut and dry. It's not a simple answer because there are a number of factors involved. But then someone will say, but I don't know what those factors are. Thank you very much. You're relying on somebody who does. Someone's asking the question. They're relying on that you know what you're doing. You know what you're saying, and that's it. That's what they're relying on. I had someone, I never take their questions anymore. Because every time they ask the question, I gave an answer. Yeah, but this one says like this. Okay, so go ask them. I mean, some of them you can't because they're no longer in this world. Yeah, some things are a difference of opinion. True, right? Maybe a lot of things. But how do I know how we hold? Because I know my rabbis taught me. Others say differently. Okay. So, doesn't invalidate me. Doesn't invalidate the answer I gave. You're right. There's other opinions. So how do you know who to hold like? Oh, that's a good question. How do you know who to hold like when there's difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities? That's a good question. That's a good question. I remember once I asked one of my rabbis about this certain thing, certain question. He says, learn it yourself. Learn the whole thing yourself and then see what you conclude. See what your conclusion is. I've asked Sturmuck many times certain things. We hold like this, we hold like that. What should I do in my case? And he'll tell me either do this or do that, or do the other thing. So you're not sure. There's difference of opinion. So you're going to ask whoever you're going to ask, and they're going to tell you how they hold. Now, does that mean it's the only opinion? No, but you don't rabbi shop either. If you're asking a question, unless that person made a serious mistake. Even if there's a difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities, that's it. They're holding according to one way, and not the other way. Why? You could ask them. You could ask them, why is it like this and not like that? So you could ask. But I had someone who's very obnoxious. Like almost every single time, I said, but why do you say this? Others say like this. So my question after a while was, so why are you asking me? You're right, there's a difference of opinion. And I've heard like this, I've heard like that, and this is why I do what I do. And this is why I would say this. But I'm saying the person can't question it. Right? There's a way to question. Yeah. This person was obnoxious. Totally obnoxious. I'm going to sit there and waste my time. Every single time something comes out of my mouth, they're going to ram it down my throat. They nope, not everyone holds that. Okay. So why are you asking? Why are you asking specifically me? Go rabbi shop. Go ask other people. Oh, I'm the only one who answered your questions? Go somewhere else. Go take a long walk off a short pier. Don't waste my time. Can't rabbi shop. You ask a question, what's the halach in this? You ask a rabbi a question, he gives you the answer, that's it, that's the answer. Can't rabbi shop unless the person's wrong. The person made a serious mistake, that's different. But he can't say, I don't like that opinion, I'm going to go elsewhere. Okay. Right? That is explicitly forbidden in the Gemara. It's brought down the Rambam, others, code of Jewish law across the board. That you're not allowed to have this one. I tell this, every time when I speak to someone on the phone, about rabbi shopping. Someone said they burnt their bridges, which they did. And they came to me and they said, well, I asked this rabbi, that rabbi, and the other rabbi, what's your opinion? So I said, oh, you want a rabbi shop? I said, I can watch the hair I don't have on my head grow. I was like, I gave you advice, you didn't take my advice. So now you're stuck. Okay, I can't help you. So what do you want? No, I just wanted your opinion. So go somewhere else. Go have someone else's opinion. I got more important things like my hair growing. I got more important things to do. Got a rabbi shop? Go have someone else. I'm not here just to be chalked up as another opinion. Yeah, that's my opinion. I'll tell you. If I don't know, I'll look it up. If I don't look it up, I'll ask someone. Right? Some things are more complex. Some things are easy to answer. Some things, need to think. Need to look into it more. Okay. Not everything's cut and dry. And not every style is for every person. But it's absolutely forbidden according to everybody. Everyone agrees. You can't rabbi shop. You ask a question, you ask a question. That's it. Unless they're wrong. Unless they made an egregious mistake. If they make an egregious mistake, that's different. But if it's a difference of opinion among rabbinical authorities, now you say, I want to get a better opinion. I want to get another opinion. I want to ask someone higher up. Forget it. Not allowed to. Right? You ask someone, they gave you the answer. And let's say that answer is a difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities, early commentators, later commentators, whatever it is. You can't say, I don't like that answer. I want to get another answer. Right? So they go ask somebody else. Can't do that. You ask your question. There are things in Jewish philosophy. That might be a different opinion. That might be a whole different thing. There are different ways of looking at certain things. That could be. But that doesn't necessarily have any practical ramifications. How you look at the state of Israel. Some people will say, you can never live there until the Messiah comes. You can't build up the land until the Messiah comes. Others will say not like that. Others will say, okay, you can be there. They'll say, do you partake in elections? Do you not vote? Do you vote? Okay, these are like political things. Different philosophical outlooks. Okay. Does that have any practical ramifications in general in Jewish law? No, not necessarily. Or have any ramifications? Okay, people have different opinions, different things. Anyone who wants to wave the Israeli flag, they're big time Zionists. Okay. They want to know why I'm not, why my Rebbe's not? I'll tell you. I'm not saying anyone has to hold that way. I've been here 28 of the last 31 years. I might be, anti-Zionist like most ultra-Orthodox Jews, but, it's a whole different issue. That's a whole different issue. But again, practically speaking, whether you wave the flag or not, does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. Some people that won't resonate with. I've had people argue with me up to gazoo. Okay. So you don't have to hold by it if you don't want to. Person wants to be a Israel thumper, be a big Zionist, fine. Not too many Zionists left in the world, but okay. I don't have an issue with it. I mean, I do, but if someone wants to do it, it's fine. That's not a Jewish law issue per se. If someone asks a question, Jewish law, it's a different issue. But he can't rabbi shop. That's forbidden. And that's a Torah prohibition. Not only that, but there are probably many things that don't have one answer. But you have to understand one other thing. When you look at the Bible in general, and you look at stories, especially in the book of Genesis, or things going on in Exodus, there are a lot of things that are complex. Probably the only way really to answer some of this, or a lot of it, is through Kabbalah, right? Which I'm definitely not qualified to do. But there are serious issues with many things. Okay. So what do people do? Or what do some people do? They take the hardest things, like some of the most difficult issues to deal with, and want a one-line answer. And a one-word answer. It doesn't work that way. Things are complex. There are a lot of things. I'm not even talking about Jewish law. When it comes to Jewish law, many things are complex. Okay. But when it comes to these type of things, and people ask the most difficult verses in Tanakh and the end of days, and someone asked me last week, I'll throw this out there. If God is not limited by space or time, first of the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam, God is absolute, so he's not bound by space or time, right? Man is bound by both. Angels only by time, not by space. So how can we say, well, God breathed in the spirit of life? Isn't that part of him in us? Isn't that limiting God? It's a little bit of him in everybody. How's that work exactly? Do we take that literally? I mean, God doesn't have a form. He doesn't have a human form at all. Right? How can God be everywhere at the same time? And then you're going to try and put him in a box. Right? Exodus chapter 25 verse 3. right? Or 25 verse 8. How are you going to put him in a box? God says, I want to put me in the Mishkan so I can dwell amongst you. How are you going to put him in a box? Yes, it's brought down, and God constricted and brought himself down to the seven firmaments. How do you put an omnipresent being in a box? In less than one sentence. It's like someone asked me once, how do you, can you explain to me? I said, they told me when I die, I'm going 6 feet under. I said, I hope for your sake, you're right. Because if I'm right and there's a next world and there's life after death, you're in trouble. They said, well, can you explain life after death in like 30 seconds? So if I would have started talking after 10 seconds, they would have stopped me. So I said, here, I'll send you a link here. You watch the video. Do whatever you want. Yeah. You want to explain life after death in 30 seconds? I don't think I can do it in less than 10 minutes. Less than 15 minutes, maybe. Explain the good inclination, bad inclination, reincarnation, this, that. I mean, it takes time. It takes time. This stuff is really complicated. I'm not saying there aren't answers. Yeah. Some people take the most difficult thing and want an answer on the spot. And, this person asked me, it was a good question. It was a good question. I spent, 20 minutes, 25 minutes going back and forth, different things. Well, it was a good question. It's definitely a good question, but in Jewish philosophy and Kabbalah, there's a lot to say about it. It's not cut and dry. Definitely not cut and dry at all. So when it comes to these things, I tell people, it comes to, stories, you look at the story of Lot and his daughters. Look at that as an example. And then you got Moab, Me'av from my father. Then you got Ruth, and you got King David. Very strange story. Like this is where the Messiah comes from. Yeah, there are a lot of stories all throughout. And you sit there and you scratch your head. You have to understand the background and what's going on and who's who. And it's complex, especially if they kept the Torah before it was given. How can Tamar be with Yehuda? And that's where kingship comes from. And Yaakov Avinu says in the book of Genesis, it gives him the blessing that the scepter of kingship never leaves the tribe of Yehuda. But it's not allowed to be with his daughter-in-law. Some say he stayed with her, some say he didn't stay with her. And that's where kingship comes from. It's also strange. Also extremely strange. Deserves explanation, okay? It deserves a lot of explanation. But this stuff is real deep. This is not, a lot of things in Torah, people have to realize, they're not one sound bite answer. Some things you can come up with quick answers, okay? Some things that are complex, if you don't remember a Gemara here or Medrash there, right? It's not so easy. It's definitely not so easy. Yeah, and again, it's not like people pick easy things either. Yeah, this question again on the Book of Ruth is a good question. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate question. The issue is people can ask the questions, not an issue at all. Realize that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I think people get extremely frustrated with this. In other words, there'll be certain things I'll cut to the chase and I'll give an answer, let's say. Let's say. And someone says, but why is that? So, okay, now we have to get to the Mishnah, you have to get to the Gemara, you have to get to this, you have to get to that. Then finally, 6, 7 steps later, you get to your question. Say, but I'm missing all that information. You're right. You're missing a huge chunk of information. Now, sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes you don't need that information. You just want to know what to do. Fine. Other times you're going to say, but why? Okay, I'm not saying you can't question. But realize we're all work in progress and realize that if we have limited information, right? If you have limited information, you can't just say, oh, I'll give another example. Right? The Torah says there are two mitzvahs in the Torah that have to do with getting long life in the next world. One of them is kibbud av v'em, honoring your parents properly. And the second one is about shooing away the mother bird and taking the eggs, i.e. what we call shulach hakeh. So the Gemara says a number of places in Megillah and Brachas. What does the Gemara say? Anyone who says it's not showing compassion, right? Or maybe you are showing compassion, you're pushing away the mother bird and taking the eggs, or someone's going to say that's cruel, they're a heretic. Now, what's the obvious question? Right? What is the $1.5 million question over here? What is the $1.5 million question is that's cruel. That looks, let's say better. That looks cruel. Now, everyone would agree. We, put on our thinking caps now. Everyone would agree that looks cruel. You're pushing away the mother bird, you're taking her eggs. That will, you're making egg drop soup. Chicken, I don't know, whatever. You're making egg drop soup. You push away the mother bird. Isn't that cruel? Mother bird comes back, it's no eggs. What can we do? It's a divine decree, right? Just like we said. It's a divine decree. Now, if somebody does it, and they do it in the right way, it should be guaranteed. That's the problem. It should be guaranteed. You have long life in the next world, whatever that means. I mean, if you have life in the next world, what does it mean long life? You're not going to die in that next world, right? You're going to be a spiritual being. So that's the whole question what it means. We're not going to go there. That's not the point. That needs a lot of explanation over here, right? Someone can look at it and say, that doesn't make sense. You're right, logically. A lot of the Torah doesn't make logical sense. You can ask the question, right? It's a legitimate question. Well, there's so many things, there are so many things that we don't understand, we don't fathom. But at the same time, at the same time, person's got to be very, very careful. We mentioned this before, that, the rabbis didn't give all answers. They gave some, right? They gave some. They didn't give, to every question 100 answers. They gave some here, some there. Some of the rabbis come up with other answers, some not, whatever it may be. So I mentioned on Thursday in my Q&A, one thing you have to be very, very careful about. Well, I brought down from the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says, and Simon Lamed Daled number 5, halacha 5, says at the end, you make fun of the rabbis. Not only you're not allowed to testify, you're never allowed to testify. You're called a heretic. You're never allowed to be part of a minyan. Pretty severe. A person can say, I don't understand what they mean. Or this is very hard to understand. That's okay. But if you sit there and say, nah, they're stupid. God forbid. I have to listen to them. That makes no sense. There are ways of saying things. To say, I don't comprehend what they say, that's okay. To say, well, this needs a lot further explanation, that's okay. You start making fun of them, and we don't, again, we have no idea who these people are. You're going to say, oh, they were great men. They're more than great men. Let's just say, they're much greater than we'll ever be. Than every great rabbi in every generation will be. Combined, we don't even know who they are. We don't know how great they were. Not just like a step above us. They're like a billion steps above us. So good. Do we always understand what they say? It's not easy to understand. No, you got to take what they say and you got to delve into it. You got to, for our puny, our puny brains, people are going to say, oh, come on. They really think that. How square, they make fun of them, they're in trouble. You make fun of the rabbis, even this generation, you're in serious trouble. Serious trouble. You got to show respect. It doesn't mean you can't ask questions. You can always ask. There's a way to ask. There's an obnoxious way to ask, right? And there are people who think they know more, okay? Right? I'm not going to argue with these people. Why am I not going to argue with them? Because there's no point. They think they know better. Oh, why should I ask you? You said this and other people this. Oh, so why are you asking? Do me a favor, don't ask. I have more things to do in my time. I got better things to do. People can ask questions. You have to know how. Once you start making fun, once you start trying, knock people down, okay, there's a limit. There's a limit. That mean we have all the answers? No. Heard my Rebbe say many times, I don't know. I don't have an answer. What do you mean you don't have an answer? So I don't have an answer. Yeah, he'll tell me, I've never met anyone been in that world, i.e. the spiritual world, and come back. And that's it. Ask Diane Fisher of blessed memory when Torah giants of the last generation. How are we supposed to save ourselves from Chevle Mashiach, from the birth pains of the coming of the Messiah, when it's really going to get bad before the Messiah comes? So he says, the Gemara says, Chesed, right? Gimel Chesed and Torah. Torah and Gimel Chesed. You have to learn a lot of Torah, and you have to do a lot of Chesed. That's what he answers. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says at the end of Sanhedrin. So I asked him, and meaning what does the Rav think? Further, screamed at me. He's like, what? You think I know more than the Gemara? You think I know more than the rabbis? That's what it says. I was like, okay. I wasn't going to say it again. I want to see the blood pressure rise. What do you think? I know more than the Gemara? I know more than the rabbis? No. That's what it says. That's what the Gemara says. He didn't give me Kabbalistic explanation. He didn't come up with some, explanation he himself thought of. He said, that's what the rabbi said, period. Period. We don't know. That's it. They didn't give us any other advice. I could have asked him, so what do you really think? I don't want to get my head cut off. Yeah, he was very blunt. And he said, I don't know more than the rabbis. That's what he said. That's humility. People think they have to know more. They need an answer every single second of every day. It doesn't work out that way. Things are extremely complex. Other people could have answers, sure. So go to them. Go to people more steeped in Kabbalah and Hasidus, they can answer. Okay. I don't have an issue with that. People more steeped in that than I am, for sure. I'm not saying they're bad questions. Very good questions. What's going to be at the end of days, right? Every former Christian wants to know. And there are 20 different potential things could happen. So someone will say, which one do you think? Doesn't matter what I think. There could be 10 different ways it could happen. Does anybody know? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I mean, maybe it's one person every generation who knows, but essentially, whoever knows ain't talking. Whoever knows not saying anything. I have my own ideas, but okay. Who knows? I could be right, I could be wrong. And I always have who to rely on because someone's going to hold that opinion. Yeah. I'm not saying people can't ask the question. Okay. There are a lot of contradictions within Tanakh. A lot of contradictions. They're going to say, well, it's so interesting. Okay. I would say, it's a good thing. Person has questions. They want to delve into it. So, if you're a convert, keep that in the back of your mind. You're going to learn everything else. Blessings, kashrus, Shabbos. Those things are more important, much more important. You're going to say, but I want to know. Like someone told me last week, before I die, I want to know what's this spark and what. Who's going to clarify it? Who in the generation is going to clarify that? Nobody. I mean, maybe the greatest Kabbalist, maybe. Yeah, we have to be the best Eved Hashem, the best servant of God we can be. These other things, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. My Rebbe would answer to that, I can tell you right now. He would say, what are you worried about? Sit and learn. You got to sit and learn. You're worried about that? You have trouble sleeping at night because of it? Sit and learn. These things don't have any relevance in our lives, per se. You got to say, hey, but come on, we're living in that generation. You're right. So you do what the Gemara does. What the Gemara says. What's going to save you from the birth pains of becoming the Messiah? What's going to save you? Torah and Chesed. More Torah you learn, the more acts of loving kindness that you do, that's going to help protect you and help protect your family, hopefully. More than that, it's all about learning. That's all it is. Fixing bad character traits, helping others. That's what's going to help. I can see Diane Fisher's face right in front of me, screaming his head off. What? You think I know more than the Gemara? Think I'm better than the rabbis? No. Do you have an answer? Do you have more of an answer? Hammered me. He said, that's not for us. That's what the Gemara says. That's it. But I want to know. I'll go to a better authority. So go to better authority. Aren't too many better authorities than he when he was alive. Probably knew a lot of Kabbalah also. Yeah. Okay. So go to someone and give those type of answers. a lot of this stuff doesn't matter, right? Again, I mentioned what we said earlier. People want to know, non-Jews, if they convert, what tribe are they from? Nobody knows. Only lies the prophet's going to tell people. Very good. So, you're not a Kohen or a Levi, that'll never happen. So you'll be from one of the other tribes. Which one? No idea. Do I know which tribe I'm going to be from? Nope. Does it matter? Doesn't matter. Why does it matter? People, I don't want to see people get distracted. These are interesting things. I'm not saying none. It's not the majority of time a person should be spending their time on. It's a waste of time, essentially. There's so many other things that are practically speaking you have to know. These things are all extra. They're all gravy. Very good. But you have to realize what goes in, what goes into an answer to a question. And sometimes, the questions are complex. They can be very complex. And sometimes there are questions we don't know really the answer. I'm not saying there's no answer. Sometimes, as God said it, that's what we do. But you have to think also. We don't have to live, we do live in a weak generation. We don't have to live in a generation where everyone is spoon-fed every last thing. Everything that has to be instantaneous. God gave everyone a brain also. I always tell someone, probably going to listen to this and laugh, right? And I'm going to say, oh, you got a question for me? It must be Rabbi Dr. Google didn't have an answer. But when I get questions, from certain people, that's what I'll answer. Like, oh, Google didn't have an answer, so you're coming to me. Okay. I don't think I always have the answer. Some things, thank God, I have answers for. But there are a lot of things that are complex, but you have to realize, and again, this is extremely frustrating. I see a lot of questions here. I'll deal with them now. The problem is you're lacking so much information. I don't care how long a person's been learning. They're lacking so much information. They don't even know the thrust of the question that they asked. They don't even know, I remember once I asked a question, one of my rabbis, something I was learning, and they told me, wow, they said, that's such an unbelievable question, but you don't even know the power of the question you just asked. I'm like, what happened? I was like, what happened? I'm like, yeah, it's such a great question, see? But I had no idea what the thrust of it was. In other words, what I had said, it touched on like a whole bunch of other things that I didn't think of. Because I didn't know, right? Because Rabbi mine told me, you just hit such a huge thing. And I was, I wasn't shooting in the dark per se. I was thinking about one aspect of one thing, but all of a sudden it was like a volcano. It was like an absolute total volcano. I said, oh, wow. I said, what a sophisticated question. I was like patting myself in the back, and they're like, but you don't even understand. Put me in my place. It's like, but you don't understand the thrust of your question because of this, that, and the other thing. When I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, that is a good question, but that's not what I meant. It's still learning Torah, but it's not what I hit one aspect of something that came in like sort of the back door for one major thing that was something totally different. Yeah. It's also learning Torah. It's also learning Torah. And again, the problem is we want everything now, and it doesn't always work that way. And a person has to be patient. We don't want to be patient. We live in an instantaneous generation. But I want the answer now. I don't like that. Okay, find another answer. Find a better answer. This is a possible answer. It has to be humility also. You have to know how to ask a question. You have to know what your limitations are. And the person also answering the question has to know the limitations. You have to know when to pass the buck, when to say, I'm not sure. Have to look it up, have to ask someone. You have to know. Better to say, I don't know, than give a bad answer. Maybe heard that from the Brisker Rav. Brisker Zev Soloveitchik of blessed memory, son of Rav Chaim Brisker. Right? When the Torah giants a generation, no question. And he once said, better to say, I don't know, than give a bad answer. So as we're struggling about a certain question, there's certain things, I'm not sure, and I was stringing like this and stringing like that. And he said, I'm not sure. Right? So a few minutes later, don't ever do this to a Torah giant, but I did it. I asked him again. I said, so what's the answer? So then he started bringing more proofs on one side, proofs on another side. And it's like, I'm not really sure. So, so I'm stringent, for this and that. Then I looked at him again, a few minutes later. He said, listen, I'm going to tell you what I heard the name of the Brisker Rav. Oh, blessed memory. The Brisker Rav said, better to say, I don't know. Better to say, I don't know than give a bad answer. Yeah, so Sternberg said, to me, you can say in my name. You say Moshe Sternberg says, I don't know. Now he knows everything. He knows Jerusalem Talmud, Midrashim, Babylonian Talmud, all the code of Jewish law, commentaries, got everything in the back of his head. He's the Torah giant of the generation. Yeah, so he said, you say in my name, I don't know. That's what he said. Now again, never do this. 5 minutes later, I looked over, he goes, I don't know, don't ask. I said, how do you know what I was going to say? He said, I saw that look. He said, I saw that look. He was right. Yeah. He knows who he's dealing with 100%. But he's talking about the Torah of the giants of the generation. And there are plenty of times he told me, he said, I don't know. I want to ask him. I'll give another example. People like examples of stories of my Rebbe. I want to ask him, there's a medrash. There's a medrash that says, first of all, the Torah says clear that who is Noah's wife? Noah's wife's name was Naamah. Yeah, the Kli Yakar is a medrash. I forget where. I forget who says it. But it's brought down that Naamah was also the wife of the king of the Shadim, the king of the demons, Ashmedai. That's his name. The king of the demons' name is Ashmedai, and he was married to Naamah. I have a question. The Torah says explicitly she's Noach's wife. How could she be married to the king of Ashmedai, king of the demons? So I want to ask my Rebbe this question. He was learning something, he looked up and he goes, what's the question? I said, well, who was she? Was she married to Noach according to what the Torah says? Was she married to the king of the demons, the king of the Shindalos, as we say? We don't say Shadim, we say Shindalos, whatever. Yeah. So I said, who was she married to? He didn't even answer me. He didn't even answer. He just said, good question. No. Well, isn't that like sort of blatant contradiction? Contradiction. She can't be married to both. I mean, maybe she could. I didn't throw that possibility out. We don't know. That's what he was telling me. We don't know. We're not sure. Really? She's married to Noah. Okay. But you have this other sort, right? And there are also contradictions in Midrashim. We don't necessarily get so worried about them if there are contradictions, because practically speaking, they don't have any relevance to Jewish law in general. And if anyone says we poskin by a medrash, we go according to Jewish law like the medrash, don't listen to them. They're the biggest frauds in the world. They don't know what they're talking about. You never poskin by a medrash. Never. Right? You know, medrash tells us some interesting stories, some interesting things, but we never go according to Jewish law, normally according to a medrash. So he had this big smile. He goes, yeah. I go, yeah, what? Which one? Tell me. Yes, no, this one, that one. I said, okay, Noah, king of the demons. Go ahead, pick one. You know, it's like 3-card Monty. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Pick one. Come on, tell me. He didn't answer. You know why I didn't answer? He didn't know. He didn't know. He said, yeah, okay. There are certain things, you're talking about these type of things, contradictions in Midrashim, other things. We don't know. It's one thing he taught me, at least one. You know, it's okay to say we don't know. It's not a cop out, because this stuff is extremely deep. Extremely deep. Yeah, I mentioned contradictions in Tanakh. The Rambam says, when you learn about the different prophets that talk about the end of days, there seems to be contradiction in verses. So a person could make a mistake. The Rambam says you're going to calculate when the Messiah is supposed to come. And there are seemingly contradictions, you know, between Jeremiah and Isaiah and others, you know, what's supposed to be. He says better not to try and figure it out, because if you figure it out and you think you got the right answer, what are you going to do? You're going to say, oh, see, the Messiah didn't come when I thought it was supposed to come, so I don't have to keep any Torah mitzvahs. That's the problem. That's a problem. You know, that definite issue. It's brought down that, forget where it's brought down, I have to look it up, that the temple, when the temple comes, it's going to come from heaven, right? Right on the Temple Mount, boom, going to knock it off. Yeah, but the Rambam says, you know, how can that be? How can that be? Certain things the Messiah has to do. One of them is he has to build it. Seems to be a contradiction there. Right there, you know, there are others also. Right? I'm not gonna, go through this whole laundry list of things, but there are contradictions of what's supposed to be. Some say Some say it's going to be an absolute brutal war, right? Gog and Magog, right? You got Malachi chapter 14. You got, I think, Jeremiah chapter 38, 39, right? Talks about it, as well. Then you got other verses saying, yeah, the Messiah comes. So you're going to have the wolf lie with the lamb. It's going to be world peace. Yeah. I haven't seen that yet. I'm saying there are a number of things that seem to offset. One offsets the other, right? Certain verses offset other verses, so it's hard to know. It's clouded in mystery. That's the point. So nobody knows. Nobody knows. Do I have my own ideas? I have my own ideas. But could it not happen that way? Sure. We don't know. Nobody knows, right? Whoever knows ain't talking. That's that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Yeah, a lot of questions here. Let me just deal with some of them. Somebody asked at the beginning, burnt offerings. Yeah, what were burnt offerings for? Here who are late. Someone that bad thoughts. Bad thoughts. So we don't have that, right? We don't have sin offerings. We don't have Thanksgiving offerings. Yeah. So what do? So good question. So sin offerings and all that we can't bring because we sinned either on purpose or by accident or whatever. So what do we have? We have Yom Kippur. We have repentance, right? So when it comes to things between man and God, so many things Yom Kippur will atone for. Some things, I have to suffer in this world. Some things, desecration of God's name, I have to repent, I have to suffer, I have to go through Yom Kippur, and have to go through death. And then you get atonement. What about sins between man and man? How do you atone for that? There's only one way to atone for it. You have to ask them for appeasement. You have to appease them. And if you don't appease them, all the Yom Kippurs, all the fasting never helps. So sin offerings, we can't do. Right? We can't do so. What replaced sin offerings? Repentance. I mean, repentance is always there also. You have to confess as well. Thanksgiving offerings can't bring. So a lot of the offerings we say in the morning prayers, there's also after every offering it says, even though we can't bring it today, it's as if I brought it by saying this prayer. That's a different issue, right? You can't bring it. So the fact that you read it, it's as if you brought it. Yeah, but so you can't bring a burnt offering. You can't bring any of these offerings. Prayer took that place. But there was prayer at the same time as when you were bringing sacrifices also. But it only got solidified. The first prayer book, I think, is about the 5th century or 8th century, right? Of Sajagon. Everything else, people prayed more what they wanted, less what they wanted. Doesn't matter. Prayer took over. That's what happened. Yeah, prayer, repentance, and that's what happened. Someone asks, I hope that answers the question. Someone asks, when Mashiach comes, we're going to get all the answers. Yeah, God's going to reveal everything, why we had to go through certain things and, and all that. And we're going to see also, after 120 years, God's going to show us what we did, what we could have done, and what the purpose of our soul was, and this and that. We'll get the answers. You won't get them now. Nobody knows. Nobody knows unless they have direct prophecy, which nobody has, only imbeciles and little children. Nobody's talking to us. And if you think God is talking to you, then, you need serious psychological help because God ain't talking to no one, right? Because when it comes to prophecy, you know God's speaking to you, right? Even the lowest form of prophecy, divine inspiration. Yeah, one of the lowest forms. Yeah, so that a person understands God's talking. So that's saved for, the righteous of the generation. Nobody else. No one else going to have that. You can think, I felt it, I this, I that. Doesn't matter. No matter what you felt, doesn't matter what you thought. It has to be direct divine communication. Nobody has that today. Great rabbis may have the least form of prophecy today. Some of them, and not all of them. Yeah. So us normal folk, we're not close. We're not close to that. What if someone who converted finds out that he or she is Jewish? Good question. Good question. Yeah, what if they find that out? Right? What if they find that out? Yeah, what if they find that out? So what happens what happens if, they had lineage, they couldn't prove it, but the reality was they were Jewish. So whoever told them they had to break Shabbos, and do other things, they're going to be liable for all those sins, that the person did. If there was no way they could have found out, there was no possible way. Yeah, and then they found out. I don't think there's any issue with that, because anything they did, they had no knowledge. They were, it's total. That's what we call a tito shenishba, 100%. Someone was like held captive by the non-Jews. They had no possible way to know they were Jewish, and then somehow last second they find out they're Jewish. Even though they went through conversion. If it's impossible for them to have found out, they won't be liable. They shouldn't be liable. Because, if there's no way they could have found out. Again, if a rabbinical court or any rabbis told them they should do this, do that, do the other thing, and it goes against the fact that if they were Jewish, they wouldn't have done it, then that person's liable. Then that rabbi, that rabbinical court, 100% is going to be liable. No question. But really, the thrust behind the question is, could you have found out? Let's say you could have found out and you didn't. So that might be more liability. You had a good inkling, a good assumption that you could have been Jewish, but you didn't look into it. You could be penalized for that. Very well could be penalized for that. But again, if someone, there's a case where if the Sanhedrin gave wrong advice and the people started doing certain things with their advice, but it was wrong, who's liable? Who's liable? Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin's liable. Now, what happens if they said this thing is kosher and it really wasn't? So what about Timtum Olev? What about the Gemara says it causes dullness of heart? Does that change, right? Someone asked this question before, right? A while ago. Let's say they had to eat non-kosher because they had no choice. They were under onus. Okay. Does that mean, even if they're under onus, it causes what we call timtum olev? It causes them to have dullness of spirit. Yeah, it causes an effect on them that makes it harder to want to keep Torah mitzvahs. So the answer is, even if they're under onus, even if as I looked it up, even if you're under onus, doesn't matter. Even if you're allowed to eat it, it causes timtum olev. Right? According to a number of commentaries, that it causes dullness of heart. But you're going to say it's not your fault. You're right. 100%, it's not your fault. But what's the bottom line? Is there a mitzias? Is there a way that this caused the problem? Caused the problem. Right? 100% it caused the problem. Why did it cause the problem? Why did it cause the problem? It caused the problem because they ate something non-kosher. But it wasn't their fault. They had an ulcer they had to eat, otherwise it could have been dangerous. Okay. But there's a reality. Right? That's what Metzias means. There's a reality. What's the reality? In a Jew, it causes timtum olev. It causes their heart to be dulled. It doesn't stop. I would have thought maybe in this case it doesn't, because they're under onus. Nope. Commentaries say not that way. In other words, it's a reality. Doesn't matter if you are under onus or not. The fact is, that's what it causes. That's exactly what it causes. Let's say, use an example. A woman's pregnant and she's, she smoked crack. Someone forced her to smoke crack. She didn't have a choice. They force-fed her crack and the kid came out deformed. Yeah. Is that her fault? Not her fault. She was forced. She had no choice, let's say. They forced her. Okay. There's a reality. There's a definite reality. Someone who does that, their fetus could definitely come out, deformed. Could happen. Right? There's a reality. They did it against her will. She didn't want to do it. Okay. But there's a reality. Why would anyone let it happen? Why God let it happen? Okay, these different issues. Different issues we're not going into. Someone here imagines, which conversion was that easy today? It's not. You're right. It's not. It's complex. That's why most people don't finish the process. It's hard. It's a grind. There's a lot of things you have to know, a lot of things you have to do. It's hard. I don't think there's any question. But again, we're not looking for people that are fly by night. We want the real deal. And if you want to be the real deal, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to learn. This is what you have to go through. So I heard that the women of Moab weren't judged by Hashem because they weren't responsible. Yeah, why were the men responsible? Because they refused to help and the Jewish people coming through. They didn't want to help them with food and drink. They said, go find it yourself. You're coming through our land, go find it yourself. That was really cruel. Right? Cheeky. That was really cruel. Yep. 100%. They didn't show mercy. Because they didn't show mercy. So what does God say? God says the entire nation never allowed to be part of the Jewish people. Sorry, the men, not the women. That's why they're punished. That's why they're punished. So when they mentioned Mashiach's building, it means his part in bringing back people to Hashem. Now, one of the things he has to do is build the temple. So some say it falls from heaven. Maybe it's not fully complete. The Messiah comes and finishes it. Right? Some say when the Messiah is there, a lot of people are going to repent. A lot of Jews are going to repent. Yeah, no one's going to be allowed to convert because there's going to be open miracles. Depends where they're holding in the process. A great rabbi once told me that if a person's accepted by a rabbinical court, then they'll be accepted. Otherwise, if they're holding before that, they won't be. They won't necessarily be. But in the end, he's going to be a great warrior, great statistician, or tactician. A great leader. Is he going to bring people back to repentance? Could be. Could very well be. But I would say like this: if a person's not holding there, it's not going to help. Not going to help. But some others say no. Other rabbinical authorities would say, yeah, it could be a massive tshuva movement. Could be. Could be. I'm an ultimate pessimist. I don't see it. The Brisker Rav holds you need to be a vessel. If you see open miracles, you have to be a vessel to be able to hold it, to be able to see it, to be able to fathom it. Because if you're not a vessel, you won't see it. You will not see it. Because someone came to him and said, God would do open miracles, people would repent. Brisker Rav said no. He said, absolutely not. He said, unless they're growing, they're learning, whatever. He said, then they have a chance. But if they're not, God can do the most open miracles and nothing will happen. And nothing will change. Someone says, let's say you obey when you're told not to and you don't become dull spirit, but the reverse. I don't know. That again, there's a reality. If a Jew eats something non-kosher, it affects him negatively. Doesn't apply to a non-Jew. Now, a non-Jew will say, I want to keep kosher and it's clean food and it's this and it's that, clean animals. Doesn't affect them the same way, right? We mentioned the laws of kashrus, right? And Leviticus Chapter 11. The Kli Yakar says, you see, non-Jews all eat all kinds of things, creepy crawly things, who knows what, doesn't affect them in a negative way. So he asks, why would they keep kosher? All right, it's Kli Yakar's question. Why would they keep kosher? That there's no benefit. No benefit to them. They may think for themselves it's a benefit, but he's saying, practically speaking, there's no benefit. So there's no benefit. Why would they do it? Why would they do it? They wouldn't do it. Yeah, that's what he says. But I hear people say all the time, even if they're no eyes, I'm going to keep kosher. All right? It's not going to affect you anyway. It's like taking a placebo. That's what it's like. But at the end of the day, it affects us. Science hasn't proven it. So we don't care about that because a lot of things science hasn't proven. Many things. Many things. So, someone, let's say you have a secular Jew becoming religious, what rabbis tell them, what's the first thing to do? Start keeping kosher and start keeping Shabbos. Right? Why kosher? To get the garbage out of your system. Because once you get the garbage out of your system, you can start listening to Torah. It's one of the things. What is eating treif, eating not kosher for a Jew? Right? We said it dulls the heart. Yeah, it makes a person apathetic. Someone who's apathetic, very, very, very hard, if not almost impossible for them to change. They won't hear Torah mitzvahs. They'll be very cynical. So you got a lot of Jews today, very cynical because of that. Not just the questioning this and that, it's all about desire. It's also true. Yeah, but it dulls the spirit. It makes them apathetic. Someone who's apathetic, it's like trying to, you start you have a nuclear bomb go over their head and it won't wake them up. Or it's like, starting a Humvee with a 9-volt. It's never going to happen. Right? So people like that, they're never going to change. They're never going to change. Yeah, that's what it means to be apathetic. Being apathetic means it doesn't matter. There's no relevance. They're not even interested. You say, wow, I got a great book. You want to read? No. They don't want to hear anything. They want to do what they want to do. They're going to say, oh, you're going to try and brainwash me. Yeah, it would help. It would definitely help. But at the end of the day, what do you have? They don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. Right? I saw and I was in the States, what's the topic you cannot speak about? You can speak about anything else. You can't speak about God or religion. Right? That's off limits, unless someone asks you a question. Right? That's by people I was by. Right? And that's probably most secular Jews. They don't want it. They're not interested. They're not growing. They care less. Right? You can speak about anything else. And you want to speak about politics, you want to speak about sports, you want to speak about entertainment, you want to speak about the news. All these things. You can speak about anything else. Can't speak about this. Can't speak about this. People don't hear. That's what it means they're apathetic. Someone who's apathetic, very, very hard to get to them. Not going to say impossible, but very, very hard. They're not interested. They're totally not interested. It's what it is. I think it's sad. I would always say, you don't see things with your own eyes, you don't believe. You don't believe. Yeah. You have somebody I once, someone said I'm a good person and this and that. So I caught them and I said, what does it mean to be good? What's your definition of good? So, I started going through this whole thing and they said, I don't know how we got onto the subject. We're stopping the subject right now. They changed the subject because they knew where I was going. They knew I potentially had them. They said, we're not having this discussion. Person got an MBA. Person not a dummy. I mean, not a dummy at all. When they want to have the conversation. You're going to tell me what I'm doing is wrong. You're going to negate everything I've done in my life. You're going to, yeah, they're right. You're going to realize their whole life was wasted. Yep. 100%. Whole life wasted. They don't want to hear that. So what will they do? They'll make fun of you. They'll say other things. But people like that, that, and they'll say, it doesn't matter. This person's a good person. This, that, it really doesn't matter. That's called apathy. There's a lot of good information out there. No. So who's really closed-minded here? But to get someone's mentality to change for not being apathetic, real hard. Real hard. They have to want to change. They have to want to see. But people think it's nuts. What you dress, what you eat, what. People will say, oh, you can't go to the bathroom till you ask your rabbi if you can. Like, anyone ever hear that? It's like, oh, you can't do anything for yourself, you can't think for yourself. Like, there are people that have any clue at all. Think like we just sit in an ashram and go, that's what we do all day. No one's ever seen like the inside of a yeshiva based medrash, people arguing, yelling, screaming, this, that, all these different things to get to the truth and see. Right? Can anybody opt out? Anyone can opt out. Comes at a certain price, but okay. No one's keeping us chained down. No one's telling us, you don't believe in him, you're gonna, fry it out forever. The repercussions, okay. The repercussions for actions, but it's not just about fear. It's not about fear. They'll say, oh, you can't get divorced or whatever. I don't know. Torah says, Book of Deuteronomy, you can get divorced. Divorce is on the rise in the Orthodox community, even if it's not even close to 60% in the secular world. They'll say, oh, that's because you can't get divorced. Who says? There are plenty of people getting divorced. Oh, you know what I mean. Oh, it's looked down upon? A marriage should be worked on? Sure, it should be worked on. And if it needs help, you go for therapy. And if therapy doesn't work, then you gotta make a decision. What to do. It's an option. It's a viable option. Even though the Gemara says God sheds his own tears when Jews get divorced. It's not what he wants, but, it can even be with the right person you married. You just blew it. Or other things happen, whatever it may be. Okay. But it's there. It's written. If people think like you can't do anything. Like, oh, that's against the rules. It's not against the rules. I mean, you have to have, a marriage is something you have to work at. And if at the end it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's not like a 5-year option to renew. It's not like, well, I shouldn't go for help, and I just want out or whatever. You have to work at it. You worked at it. There are differences you can't get over, this, that. Okay, you go for therapy. If it doesn't help, then you have to make a decision what to do. It's on the books. But people think, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. They have no idea. They have no idea. The Torah says clear, you have to get divorced. A lot of times it's better instead of staying married. Then a person stays married, they can say, oh, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to be a martyr for the sake of my kids. Or say in Bas, I'll be a martyr. Right? I'll be a martyr for the sake of my kids. So but your kids see it also. Kids see it also. Yeah. And if you get divorced, your kids are in the middle and they're pawns and it could be really ugly and different things. Yeah. Nobody wins. The only people that win in the divorce, normally it's lawyers. They're the ones that rake it in. Right? Nobody wins. But you're going to say, what, shouldn't get divorced? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are times you should get divorced. 100%. Yeah, if there's no other option. Therapy's not going to help, or, certain things will be done that are, you can't get around then. But, it should be worked on. What happens if one spouse won't go for therapy? So the other spouse has to make a choice what to do. Further, they might need therapy for themselves. Okay. True. They may need that just to, get through the day and whatever, but they have to make a decision. If the other person's not going to change, how bad is it? And if it's really bad, they can't take it, so they should get divorced. If the other person's not going to go for therapy, what are you supposed to do? Either you can live with the person that way, somehow deal with it, or not. I'm not saying it's cut and dry. I mean, this is very complex. It depends what it is. Depends what a person's going through. But at the same time, I would say, yeah, if it's unbearable and there's no way around it, that person's never going to change. So, so what do you do? Someone asks, how can you say someone is soulmates? That's what we believe. Everyone has half a soul. The person they marry is their other half. Now, what does it mean they're soulmates? So what does the Torah say? That Eve is a helpmate for Adam. It's a helpmate. Doesn't mean she's a yes person or a slave. She complements him. Yeah, doesn't mean they always agree on everything. Definitely not. But see, in the Orthodox world, in short, persons are going to get married, and it's not based on infatuation, right? Love comes after marriage because you don't get involved in physicality till after. But you have to look at the other person as a person, right? So there's a deep connection. But again, that really deep connection comes later. It actually comes later. But you're seeing if you're compatible, where you came from, what, different things. How can a person know? Can you know for sure? I mean, there are people when they click, they click. Some people they can click for the wrong reason. They think that's what it is, but it really isn't. And then they see later that, yeah, they made a mistake. But it was always told to me, and I couldn't stand it. But it was always told to me when it's right, it's right. When you know, you know. I've heard people say, well, how do you know for sure? You don't know, there's nothing for sure, except death and taxes. I mean, Torah, we believe 100% is true. There's nothing to talk about. Yeah. Could I have doubts over here? This person really my soulmate? Yeah, when you argue in different things, but all things being equal, there are people when they meet, they click. You say, what about a Jew and a non-Jew? That's a different issue. That's not their soulmate unless a person converts. Totally not their soulmate. It messes up so many other things, which I don't want to get into now. But it messes up a lot of things. A lot of things. So how do you really know? People know. Again, it doesn't mean it's perfect by any stretch, but people know. there's a, I'll tell one quick story. And I have to run. And that is, I met my wife in an unorthodox way. I was up north in Sfas with friends of mine after Sukkot, and she was up there with friends of hers. She was at Hebrew University for the year. And anyway, some of her friends met some of my friends, and we ended up meeting. So we ended up talking, so up north it's like 3 hours to get to Jerusalem, by bus. So anyway, we started talking, and we talked the entire way on the bus. 3 hours. Now you can imagine. Think I have that much to say in 3 hours? A lot to talk about. Yeah. So after those 3 hours, and we pretty much talked about our backgrounds and different things and this and that, I was pretty convinced, even though she wasn't 100% religious at the time, I was convinced, this is the one. She wasn't convinced. It took a little bit, but 32 years later almost, thank God. But say, how'd you know? Everything clicked. It's just, there's no way to explain it. Everything just sort of, background, where she came from, family, like everything was like very similar, very, very similar. Youth group that she went to, certain camp she went to, and where I went to university, whatever, a lot of different things. That's one of the things my wife said, like, how do you know? So yeah, I took a chance. It's true. Definitely took a chance. It wasn't necessarily holding where I was at the time, but I sort of, saw through that. So yeah, it was a chance. It's true. Definitely true. The unorthodox way to meet. Very true. But throughout that conversation, after that, I had no doubts. I got engaged 2.5 weeks later. 2.5 weeks later, went back to the States, Thanksgiving, football, champagne, whole 9 yards. Yeah, 32 years later, we're still here. 7 kids, 8 grandkids, thank God. But yeah, totally unorthodox. So you can say, but how'd you really know? And my wife, before I got engaged, I was like, but how do you know? I was like, do you have any doubts? No. Do you have any questions? No. She's just kind of scared, 20 years old. All friends not doing this, whatever. So yeah, it was kind of a scary thing. But, when you know, it is a nervous thing. I get it. 100%. People say it's better to live together, all this. Definitely not. Right. Then, and once that happens, then you don't end up getting married anyway. Right. But many people will say that, even if they maybe had some doubts here and there, after the fact, they didn't have any issues. But here people get married much younger. I was like 23, 24. My wife was 20, when she got married. But again, we didn't go through the normal channels. But there weren't any major issues. That's what I kept saying. If there are any major issues, let's hear. Let's hear what the major issues are. There weren't any. It was just nerves. It was just nerves. But most people will say when they meet and they speak and this and that, some people, first date, forget it. Maybe they have a second date and say, no, not, they're looking for something specific and what they want and this and that. And, it take a while to find, the right person. But, in that sense, it's, it made perfect sense. Totally made perfect sense. And there are a lot of other factors I'm not going to go into now, I don't have time, but there are a lot of other things that are just so above nature that you can't even explain it otherwise. Just a lot of different things. So very unorthodox, no question. None of my kids did that, but extremely unorthodox in that sense. But at the same time, 1 3-hour discussion, I said, wow, this person holding, grew up the same way I did. Then we started to date. Each date was probably 3 hours, 4 hours, more. And so after that, I said, okay, there's nothing else to know, so let's do it. And she's like, well, how do you know? And this and that, or whatever. So, so Thanksgiving still has a little bit of nostalgia for me, football, turkey, engagement, why not? All goes together. So, yeah. So how do we know? We know. Then we got married 6 months later, a whole nother story. Preparing, doing the wedding in Israel and the whole fight with doing the wedding in Israel, the whole story in of itself. But anyway, I'm gonna stop there. I see I didn't get very far today. We'll continue with this next week. Hopefully, I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com, or Michael Chaim Kaufman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. We got videos there on Torah Portion of the Week, Book of Leviticus, Chapter 16, Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Controversial Issues, and we're actually going to start Duties of the Heart again for Noahide Nations, 2:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day.